Hey, welcome to Drowning in Yarn. I'm Caleb. Today I want to share with you how I make some simple modifications to my favorite mitten pattern, the World's Simplest Mittens by Tin Can Knits. This mitten pattern is amazing because it includes instructions for 4 different weights of yarn. It is super easy to knit. The end result is really functional, and best of all, it's free. So I wanted to show you how I make some simple modifications to take this standard mitten pattern and make it a convertible top mitten pattern. This won't be a full mitten tutorial because the mittens are not mine to teach. I just want to show you the small section of the pattern that needs to be modified to turn these into convertible mittens. Let's jump right in and I'll show you where you need to start thinking about these modifications, and then I'll take you through all the steps that are required to make these amazing mittens into convertible mittens. Once you get a little bit past where you've put the thumb stitches on waist yarn, that's where the modifications are going to begin, and you're going to want to start thinking about how long you want this portion of your mitten to be. Up to that point, you're following the pattern exactly. So I'm going to show you on this completed World's Simplest Mitten with a convertible top. So these are the exact same modifications. Up until where I start the ribbing for the hand portion of my mitten, you're following the World's Simplest Mitten pattern exactly as written. No modifications, no changes, so super simple. When you get to about 1 inch before where you want the ribbing on the hand portion of your mitten to end, you're going to start doing 1 by 1 ribbing. And you're going to do that all the way around. So I just try it on. Make sure it's kind of on in like a natural way. I like the ribbing on the hand portion of the mitten to end about where my knuckles are. So I'm just gonna knit maybe 1/4 of an inch more, and then I'll switch to 1 by 1 ribbing and bind off, and I'll show you what that all looks like. So I'm knitting the 1 by 1 ribbing using the exact same needle that I use for the rest of the mitten. You can go down a needle size if you'd like, but I've never found it to be necessary on this project. So I did about 1 inch of 1 by 1 ribbing, and I just want to try the mitten on to see if I like where it falls, which for me is about where my knuckles are. As you can see, that was about 1 inch of fabric. So now it's time to bind off, and I bind off using the exact same needle that I used to knit the ribbing. I don't worry about making a super stretchy bind off here, it's just not necessary. But I do bind off in pattern. So I knit the knit stitches and purl the purl stitches and bind off with your typical bind off. So the next step after binding off the hand portion of the mitten is to pick up and knit stitches along the back of the glove. So what the back is depends on if it's for your right hand or if it's for your left hand. So just make sure you pick up your stitches on the right side of the mitten. My favorite way to pick up and knit stitches is to use a second needle. So I'm going to use a DPN, and I'm going to pick up half of my total number of stitches. So I'll just count 3 rows below where the ribbing started and start picking up stitches. So I'm just picking up the right leg of the stitch. They're hard to see in this mitten that I'm doing because I'm actually holding a Surrey double with a fingering weight yarn to achieve a DK weight gauge. So I'll show you on a swatch just because I think it'll be a little bit easier to see and demonstrate this. But I'm just picking up, for me, 24 stitches. So the total number of stitches that I have is 48. I just want to pick up 24 of those. And the benefit of picking up your stitches with a second needle, in this case a DPN, you can use a second set of circulars, but you can review your work before you actually start knitting these stitches. So I can make sure that I picked them up in the right row, I can make sure that I have the right number, do all of that before I actually put yarn into this fabric. Then all you want to do is knit all of those stitches off that needle, or if you've picked up and knitted directly into the fabric, then you're good to go to the next part. So now we've picked up and knitted on the back of the glove. So what we're going to do next is get our total stitch count back to the same number that we had at this point when we were knitting the finger part of the mitten. So we're going to need to cast on the other half of our stitches. So I'm going to go ahead and cast on those stitches using the backwards loop cast on. These stitches are just going to be really tight whenever you get back over here to knit them. But that's just for the first round. So once you get past that, it's not going to be so bad. So I have 24 stitches, and now it's time to join these stitches to work in the round. And then we're going to work the back of the hand side and stockinette. and the palm side in 1x1 ribbing. So you're going to end up with the first half of your stitches always being knit, the second half of your stitches in 1x1 ribbing. So you'll join to work in the round, making sure you don't twist your stitches, and knit the first half of your stitches, whatever that number was that you picked up and knit, you'll go ahead and knit those. So I've knit the first half of my stitches. Time to flip around and do the stitches on the palm side, keeping in mind these are going to be tight, and I will work these in 1x1 ribbing. At this point, the way that you're working is a little bit awkward because technically what you're doing is knitting in the round, but with a whole mitten in the middle. So you have stitches on this side, you've got stitches on this side, and all of this work is this flip top. So this mitten's kind of dangling here. This, like, being a little bit cumbersome shouldn't be a problem, but yeah, after about an inch, you're past the mitten portion, and so you won't have that sort of awkwardness to contend with. I just finished the last row that includes the 1x1 ribbing on the palm side of the mitten. So you can see that it fits around the hand portion of the mitten, and it's attached on this side. So your first half of the stitches, as we talked about, are knit in stockinette. The second half of your stitches in 1x1 ribbing, and you stop when it reaches the top of the hand portion of your mitten. And this is the end of the modifications. From this point forward, you follow the pattern exactly as written. And that's really all that's required to turn this amazing mitten pattern into some really versatile convertible top mittens. If you enjoyed this video, I really hope you'll hit the little like button, hit the subscribe button if you want to stick around for more knitting and yarn related videos. But until next time, I hope you enjoy your knitting, and I will see you in the next one.